Typical less lethal conversation. Yeah, since I got into this less lethal, I've been loading my mag with CO2 so I could get a lot of air to my heat core so the bolt can go fast. And that's why I like the FSC. But you know, your TCP is pretty good. The FSC and TCP is similar, but you know, there's that VKS as well, which can run HPA. And then there's the M17 and the TCR. Those are pretty nice too, aren't they? Are you guys getting feel like you're sinking or drowning in a sea of acronyms? Well, especially if you're a newbie and you're not familiar with all of these terms, let me clarify and break them down and try to explain in this video. So take a few minutes and try to catch up on some of the jargon in this field. Stay tuned. A lot of three-letter abbreviations, surprisingly, and for a newcomer coming in, this can be really intimidating. A lot of this derives from the various lineages of markers that have come along, and I think understanding those lineages is important. So we're going to do less lethal lingo 101 today. So let's start out with the Tiberius lineage. This is the older lineage of the T8.1, T9.1, and T4.1, and you probably hear those terms. The T8.1 is the long pistol-like, dirty, hairy-looking pistol. T9.1 is a rifle, and T4.1 is a longer rifle, a full-size rifle. And then you've got the First Strike FSC and the Pepperball TCP, which were basically developed at about the same time. But those developed from Tiberius, which became First Strike, and split into Pepperball and First Strike. And it is now United Tactical Systems is the umbrella company. But the Pepperball has generated a line of products that most closely mirror the Tiberius lineage. These include the TCP and the VKS, and then now they've developed a patrol carbine, which is for law enforcement only, that sort of fits that niche in between, sort of like between the 8.1 and 9.1. But there's really nothing there in the FSC. In the paintball world, though those no longer exist, those have all been developed toward Pepperball, toward law enforcement and military applications. So the First Strike FSC is the First Strike Compact, and that's because it is a compact version. If you compare that to the T8.1, it is noticeably smaller and more compact, and that's by design. The TCP is also compact. It is a tactical compact pistol. But it is virtually identical to the FSC with some minor differences, and I'm not going to go into those great differences today. The VKS is a variable kinetic system, which is just a fancy way of saying that you can adjust the velocity, which sort of doesn't make a lot of sense to me because all of these Tiberius lineage markers have a very nice velocity adjustment screw, which is available from the outside, and that's one of the main reasons that I like this lineage of markers. And that's why I've been on board with the First Strike Pepperball system. But there are a lot of jargon and abbreviations and acronyms that I want to go through. LL, of course, is less lethal. We use that all the time. It's so easy to say less lethal by just saying LL. HPA is high pressure air. This is just air that is under high pressure. In contrast, CO2 is a liquid form of carbon dioxide that is put under pressure in a liquid form into a small cartridge, and then when you expand, and it expands into a gas when that cartridge is the barrier is broken. So those are the two systems for delivering the air under high pressure. A mag is the magazine. We often use the term mag. Heat core, this is a term that is a carryover from a particular marker, and it's used now uniformly referring to the firing bolt, or as the heat core is the area where the bolt and the air chamber interact. And there's a lot of action going on there. There's a really important O-ring there called, and then we refer to it sometimes as the heat core O-ring, but it's really the firing bolt O-ring. But that's term heat core has stuck, and it seems to be something that everyone is using these days. And so I think that's some of the basic first things you need to keep in mind in the less lethal lingo. Now, there are different types of rounds that can be used. So this is aside from the various markers and some of those abbreviations, there are two main types of rounds. There are kinetic rounds and there are chemical rounds. And of the kinetic rounds, these can be rubber, they can be plastic, they can be metal. It can be metal PVC hybrid, and there can be many other variations of creative ways that you can have combinations. The chemical rounds are primarily based on pepper powder and capsaicin, such as OC, and then a chemical derivative called PAVA, which I'll add on there in a second. And then there can be other tear gas powders and other more strong powders that are in some of the other pepper balls, such as the Byrna rounds. And so there are a lot of combinations and things that you can choose there. And it's not so much about the chemical itself, it's more about the how well is the pepper ball constructed. Is it going to break on you? You know, is it going to break on the target? Those are the things that you really need to keep in mind. I don't think any of them are going to have trouble stopping a person if you can get them to break. All of these compounds are very active chemical compounds that affect the throat, the eyes, the skin, and they create all of that deterrence. So those are your two possibilities for your rounds, and that we routinely talk about: chemical, kinetic. Now, I know I live in the Tiberius first strike pepperball world, but there are a lot of interest in the M17, and you'll hear that term a lot. That is from Milsig, and it was now become Valken, and it is the Valken M17 at this point. That is a rifled launcher. It's got a mag-fed. It's for mag-fed paintball. And then there's the TCR, which was originally from Mission Less Lethal, and now it's by Byrna. The TCR is a tactical compact rifle. And so the TCR has a really nice bolt system, and the M17 as well. These are really excellent markers, and they're generally cheaper than the Pepperball brand, and because these are not used. M17 is exclusively by paintballers, but the TCR is being used by some law enforcement in terms of the Byrna itself, the pistol, and the tactical compact rifle. And then there's the Umarex line. This T4E line is training for enforcement or training for entertainment. I don't remember which one it is exactly, but it is essentially replicas of firearms that military and law enforcement can use. That's authentic weight and look and feel for practice, and these are also being adapted for less lethal applications at this point by going in and altering the restrictor, and so that you can get more airflow through the system. All of these have pros and cons, and I'm certainly not an expert on these three, but I do know that different brands have different tolerances for high pressure air, and that's just something that you'll encounter as you move along in this field. PRV, that's something we often talk about as we want to delete the PRV. That's the pressure relief valve, and that's something that will allow you to get more air through the system and will allow you to not lose air, so better air efficiency. And I have done the PRV delete on the TCP, and it works really well for getting the most power shots and the most high-powered shots out of a particular CO2. So let's review very quickly. These lineages of markers, if you ever hear T, 8.1, 9.1, 4.1, just remember that these are currently out of market. They are not available at this point to purchase. If you want to get these, you have to get them on a secondary market. They'll be used or refurbished or rebuilt. And there's nothing wrong with these markers. Just remember that the parts may or may not be available or compatible with the current FSC parts that are widely available. I personally would not go with one of those, although I think if you have one, they're certainly great markers. Price is certainly a factor, and this talk is definitely not about price, but I think that's also a factor you have to consider. Maybe you want to buy one of those used markers, or maybe you want to go for a new one. I personally prefer to get new whenever it's possible. So I have focused my less lethal endeavors so far on the TCP and the VKS. Those have been my primary markers that I'm experimenting with, and I'm working with both kinetic and chemical rounds. So I want to basically explore both of those. I think they have great potential together. And then there's exotic rounds. People are coming up with all kinds of new things, and we certainly are interested in what you can and cannot shoot adequately from these markers. and what gives you jams and what doesn't, and what's going to be practical. There's other great systems, lots of good content out there on YouTube. So check out all the other channels that focus on the Valken, the mission Byrna systems now. And also there are great projectiles. There are riot balls, there are Canada riot balls, there are many other types of balls that have combinations of PVC and metal, rubber. I generally stay away from rubber. I want plastic. I don't mind metal, but I don't want metal on the outside, because I do not want any chance that the metal is going to scrape the inside of the barrel and destroy my barrel. These barrels are not cheap, and so I think you should just use some judgment when you buy these, and also realize that their bore is usually smaller than 6.83, and they may not fit well in a 6.86 barrel. And that's one reason why I really love the Grimburg Jewels, because they are bore matched to the 6.86 barrel, and they fire really well. The Umarex system is a great plinking system, and it fires shaped projectiles well. You can have a great variety of projectiles there. It looks like the most fun system to me for having, plinking fun with these. And it also, potentially has the ability to be upgraded safely. A lot of new horizons out there, a lot of launchers, a lot of projectiles, various things that we can do to test. We have a lot of things that can be explored. It's a very active community, and stay tuned for more from the Scaredy Cat TV. Take care.